Okay, so you want to start doing some watercolor, but you don't know where to start. I'm going to start with this video is going to focus on the kind of materials you might need as a beginner watercolor artist. Now, watercolor comes in various shapes and forms. It comes in palette forms. This one's a little bit murky because I've used it a lot, but you can see it. You can see the different colors in that sort of palette. And we also have tubes, and they come in different brands and pigments, and one can be $30 or $10. So I would suggest to start off with thinking about the paper. So we'll talk about the paper and what I think is your good first kit for watercolors. Now this is from Ceres. It's just a watercolor journal. I like it because it's spiral bound, and when you paint or draw you could turn it right round and start working instead of having the book bind. And this is about, there's different types of paper and weight of paper, and when you look at something like this you'll see that it says 140 pounds, water, cold press, and there you have it. There's a difference between cold press and hot press. For our purposes I would suggest something like this, just a cold press, 140. You can go up to 300. Something like this, where you can see the grain, but that depends again on the make of the watercolor, the different grains you can see coming through, the brightness. In a palette like this, a basic palette, you're not going to get these effects, but to start off with I would suggest a Winsor Newton little palette, just like that, a small watercolor journal, and you can also get them in loose papers as well, but I would suggest just to begin with one of those. And then you have different brushes in watercolors which have different effects, but again I would, to start off with, the water brushes that you can get either at Home Sense or any of the art shops. You can get them in different shapes, putting water inside and not having to dip into water glasses on the go. So this is mainly for journaling, but I would suggest that it's a good first start. You have different palettes like this. This is Mart from Home Sense, but you can see it's very chalky. Nothing wrong with it, it's just that it has a different grain and different feel on the paper. But I would suggest starting with either that or Winsor and Newton. You have other palettes that have like brand names like Daniel Smith. Something like this is like $90, and you can see the colors are more vibrant. And I've just put other colors from my collection of tubes there and kind of supplemented it. But I like their really bright yellows and reds and vibrant blues. So having said that, again I'll go back to just go for your Winsor Newton. This something like this is $50, or you could get the Home Sense one, which is probably about $20. Nothing wrong with it, just different and a bit chalky. And you can get some watercolor, again this is also Home Sense, watercolor pencils, and you can get something like that if you really want to start off with, which gives you everything. It gives you the brush that I was talking about, some watercolors, pencil, sharpener, all in one place. So this is also a good option. And I just wanted to give you some idea about what the different kind of effects of watercolor are. So if you look at this gradient, we start with a pigment, lots of pigment, a little bit of water, do a line, then add more water and add more water, and that's how you have the different effects of the watercolor. I'll get to that in a different video. I wanted to show you the different gradients of blues from the expensive kind of Daniel Smith watercolors. This is a basic pad that's about 140 pounds as well, but you can see the different gradients of watercolors. And this is just showing the different brushes, the fan brush, to give you the effects. So it all depends on the type of watercolor, the type of brush, and the type of paper. Then we'll be working with other things like just adding a wash and putting salt patches to create this effect. I haven't wiped away the salt, I just wanted the effect there, but it kind of gives you that tie and dye effect. The salt absorbs all the pigment and then creates this kind of effect on the watercolor. This is wet on wet, wetting the paper, then adding the watercolor, and then letting it just kind of play on the surface of the paper. And then, you know, once you get your palette, you can create swashes on the paper that you're using to see how the paint works on the paper. So in the beginning, it's all about experimenting. So I would suggest getting some cold pressed paper, about 140 grams, spiral. These ones are de series, and when I got them, they were on special. I think they were about like $5 each. Just giving you some idea of what I do, and then we can talk about how to start your composition and what to do in the next video. So if you have any questions, just email me at lotusmenezes@gmail.com, and we can talk about all the different papers and brushes. But for now, I would suggest a water brush, a journal with spiral bound. You don't have to get that if you don't get it, and just a palette like that. That's all you need for now, and then we can start working on some images.